The second step of the setup information is to enter your vendor information. Let's go to the vendor list. Each vendor from whom you purchase merchandise must be identified by a unique company name. When you assign a vendor to each item defined in inventory, Point of Sale can track and report on the merchandise by vendor as it is ordered, received, and sold. You can also assign each vendor a user-defined code of 1 to 3 alphanumeric characters. These vendor codes can be a useful alternate way of searching for a vendor record and appear on printed price tags where the printable space is often limited. If you have integrated Point of Sale with QuickBooks Financial Software, you can elect to enter vendor invoices for the merchandise you have purchased in either program. This Point of Sale company preference choice affects how the receiving vouchers are transferred to QuickBooks. In the next video, we will describe the vendor fields that are available when entering a vendor. In this video, we will define the vendor fields for easy setup. Let's go to the vendor list. Let's click on Gram Monitors and we'll edit. Here is where you list the company name. And if you don't have the company name, it will bring up other companies' names that are around your area, which is pretty cool. The vendor code is an optional alphanumeric code up to 3 characters identifying the vendor. This code is printed on price tags and can be used to look up and list the vendor on another record or document. Next is the contact information. So here you can enter in the title, the first name, the last name, the email address. If you know the vendor's website, you can enter that here. And then you enter in the rest of the address, the phone number, and then the mobile phone number. Underneath, you have the history, and this will tell you every interaction, every purchase that you've had with the vendor. The terms are shown here, and this is where you can enter in the vendor terms. The default payment terms are suggested on purchase orders and receiving vouchers made for the vendor, and they can be shared with the QuickBooks software if it's integrated. The vendor setting area has the vendor's account number. So if you call in and you have account number, you can enter that in this box right here. If you have an alternate phone number or an alternate contact name, you can enter that there. Or if you no longer interact with this vendor, you can mark him as inactive. If this box is checked, it will hide them as a vendor from the active vendor list, and it will stop exchanging the vendor's information with QuickBooks Financial Software. Last is the vendor notes. These are optional notes such as shipping, lead time, FOB point, things like that. And once you've completed your vendor form, then you can save. To edit a vendor record, go to your vendor list, highlight the record that you want to edit. We will choose Davis Business Associates. We will select Edit. You can also click on the Edit from the I Want To menu. We'll choose Edit on the right-hand side. You can modify the vendor fields as necessary. Let's change the name, and we'll select Save. And that's all you have to do to edit a vendor record. To create a new vendor using the copy, go to your vendor list. In the vendor list, highlight the vendor record to be copied. We will choose Gram Monitors, Cables, and Supplies. We will select Copy from either the I Want To bar, or we can click Copy on the left-hand side from the Window toolbar to copy all the fields to a new record. You can make any edits you need To modify the vendor, at a minimum, a new company name must be assigned to the new vendor. We'll just change the company name to Mill Creek Syrup, and then we will click Save. Our vendor details show up here. To delete a vendor record, select the vendor record that you want to delete from your vendor list. You can select Delete Vendors from the I Want To list, or we can choose Delete from the blue button on the left-hand side of the screen. Once you're prompted, confirm the deletion and specify if you want to delete the vendor from QuickBooks as well. If you are deleting a vendor because you have duplicates, consider merging the records instead, as this will combine the two vendor histories into one record and remove the other. Deleting a vendor record does not affect inventory items or history documents. The vendor remains in place in both of those areas, and reports can still be generated for the deleted vendor. We recommend deleting the vendor in QuickBooks if prompted, to guard against accidental deletion. If a vendor record is deleted in only one program, it is recreated upon the next financial exchange. Note that if the vendor is listed on documents in QuickBooks, the record is made inactive instead of deleting it. Making the vendor inactive also prevents a record from being recreated with the next financial exchange. If you delete a vendor but later list that vendor on a receiving voucher by referencing a purchase order listing the vendor, for example, the vendor record is recreated in both Point of Sale and QuickBooks with the next financial exchange. Our next video will demonstrate how to make a vendor inactive. Vendors in Point of Sale can be flagged as inactive. Let's go to the vendor list. Let's choose one of our vendors. We'll choose Express Delivery Service. We'll click Edit. This shows us the vendor record. To make the vendor inactive, we would select the Inactive checkbox on the vendor record and select Save. To view your inactive vendors, use the All Vendors filter or define a custom filter to display the inactive vendors. To reactivate the vendor, clear the inactive checkbox. So we will go back into the vendor. We will clear the inactive checkbox and we will save. And now the vendor is active. Keep in mind that if you flag a new vendor as inactive, that vendor will not be shared with QuickBooks financial software. However, if you later receive items from the inactive vendor on a voucher, the vendor will be created in QuickBooks when the voucher is sent to your financial software. Let's go back to the home page. Our next video will demonstrate how to merge vendors. Occasionally, you may find that a vendor has been entered twice in your vendor list. Merging the vendor records combines the purchase history of the duplicate entries into a single record and then deletes the other. If you are integrated with QuickBooks financial software, you will be prompted to delete the duplicate vendor in QuickBooks as well. Keep in mind, if you use multi-store, this task is only available at the headquarters store. To merge your vendor records, go to your Point of Sale vendor list. Select one or both of your records. So we're going to select Cal Telephone. To select the other Cal Telephone, you will click on the Shift key and then click on your mouse. So as you can see, both records are highlighted. Or you can just highlight one, select Merge Vendors from the I Want To menu. The Merge Vendors window opens with the pre-selected vendors. Since we didn't choose a second one, we will have to do that here. We will choose the other vendor. We will review the vendors and make any changes as necessary. Ensure the vendor record you want to keep is displayed on the left-hand side of the window. You can reverse positions of the records by selecting the swap button located between them. To add or change a vendor, use the drop-down list to select or search for the vendor. If you are integrated with QuickBooks Financial software, the vendor names as shown in your QuickBooks vendor list is shown to help you verify you have the correct vendor selected. Select Merge Vendors. If the vendor being removed has a purchase history, a listing of the number of receiving vouchers and purchase orders to be updated is displayed. The vendor on these documents will be replaced by the vendor you selected to keep. If prompted, specify if you want to delete the duplicate from your QuickBooks Financial software as well. And that will conclude our video on how to merge vendor records. You can set up default payment terms for your vendors. The default terms that you specify are applied to purchase orders and receiving vouchers made for the vendor. To define payment terms for a vendor, go to the vendor list, display the vendor record in form view. We'll choose Associates Business Forms. The terms dialog is displayed as shown here. You can enter information in 3 fields to define the payment terms. The example below shows the payment is due in net 30 days with a 2% discount given if paid within 10 days. We'll select Save. This video concludes how to define a payment term for a vendor. You can quickly send an email to a vendor provided you have entered their email address on the vendor record and have a default Windows email client set up. If you wish to attach a point of sale document to the email, use the emailing a document procedure instead. To email a vendor, display the vendor record from the vendor list. Let's choose Davis Business Associates. Let's show the details. Your email information is right here. We'll click on that. It brings up our email information. You can add a subject line and a body and your text. You can create your email information and then send. I'll go back to the home screen. Point of Sale does not support mass emailing to your vendor list. However, if you have another application capable of doing this, you can export your vendor list or your vendor list report, including email addresses, to Excel, then, depending on your application, import them for this purpose. And that concludes our demonstration on how to email a vendor from the vendor list. To print your vendor list, go to the vendor list, click on Reports, Click I want to. Choose Run a Report. Here you can choose your vendor summary, your vendor list, or your vendor exchange. We want to print our vendor list, so we will choose this option. Here we can memorize this report, manage this report. You can add this report to your dashboard. You can add or remove columns. You can filter data. You can change the report appearance. You can set the report access level. And you can show the print preview. Now these will be gone over in further detail in the report section. Thank you for watching my video. Please subscribe and click on the bell to be notified when I make another video about Point of Sale. Thank you, everybody.